I was one of the engineers on the Last Ark. We orbited a devastated Earth. It was 3 months ago. My job was to keep vital systems running. I felt responsible for everyone. Our routine was stressful but normal. I checked life support systems and worked late when needed. One evening, I was alone in the control room. I was running diagnostics and the hum of machines surrounded me. The lights were bright but harsh against the dark outside. That's when I first heard a strange static on the radio. I thought it might be interference. After fine-tuning the frequency, I picked up voices. I didn't know why they were coming through. I mentioned it in our meeting. The crew shrugged it off. They didn't think it was important. But days passed, and the static continued. It felt different, like it was calling to me. The voices sounded urgent. I had tears in my eyes as I tried to understand. I could hear snippets, urgent pleas, and sometimes crying. I should have ignored it, but I didn't. It felt like I was meant to help. Things changed. Crew members started acting strange. Jackson, one of the engineers, fixated on the radio. His eyes were wide, almost manic. He stared at the static like it held the key to everything. At first, we joked about it. But soon, it felt unsettling. I felt uneasy watching him. Then one day, I heard it again. I was working late, alone again. The station was eerily quiet. The life support systems hummed in the background. I strained to listen. "Liam, help us." My heart raced. I hadn't told anyone. I worried they'd think I was losing it. But I needed to know if anyone else heard it. The next morning, I walked into the crew room. Jackson was staring blankly at the wall. I called his name. He just whispered, "They need us." Chills ran down my spine. I voiced my worries about the radio. Sarah, another engineer, revealed she'd been dreaming about Earth. She described dark images of people reaching out for help. She looked terrified. Now, we were all on edge. It was hard to separate reality from madness. Something was happening, something beyond understanding. The voices grew stronger, and so did my dread. I regretted not doing something sooner. One night in the control room, I heard it. "Liam, help us." I turned around. For a moment, I thought I saw something moving through the glass. Deep in the darkness of space. I gripped the console. I wasn't sure if I should respond or flee. My heart stopped. Then it all went silent. No voices. No static. Just the darkness beyond, as if it had swallowed everything. I felt emptiness around me, and I was alone with my thoughts. The station felt wrong. I didn't know what happened next. The silence weighed heavily on me. I knew something was coming, something I couldn't understand. And all I could think was, I should have listened. The silence lingered, heavy and taut, stretching moments into what felt like eternity. I sat in the control room, staring at the dark void beyond the glass. The hum of the life support systems was now a dull reminder of all that was at stake. When I finally gathered enough courage, I reached for the radio. My hands trembled as I flicked the switch on. Static crackled, then went quiet. I tried shifting frequencies, hoping to catch a whisper, a murmur, anything. Before I could fully process my fear, I noticed something on the console, a flashing light I'd never seen before. It pulsed like a heartbeat, just beneath the surface. "Jackson?" I called out, feeling the weight of loneliness. "Sarah?" No response. They were both elsewhere, likely absorbed with their own thoughts, like I was. I hesitated but then pressed the button with the light. Instantly, I was met with another burst of static. "Help us!" The voices strained against the noise. My heart raced. I was desperate to help, but I didn't know how. "Where are you?" I yelled into the receiver, but the only response was the humming of machines drowning out my voice. Suddenly, I felt it again, a presence, just beyond the window. The darkness pressed against the glass like it was alive, like it was trying to get in. I squinted, searching for movement, but all I found was my own reflection, wide-eyed and terrified. Had I imagined it? Panic gripped me, fueled by a fear I couldn't shake off. I decided I needed to find Jackson and Sarah. I stood up, moving toward the engine bay where they often worked. The corridors felt constricting, the lights too bright, almost blinding. With every step, I could still hear the faint static echoing in my ears. When I reached the engine bay, it was empty. I called out, but all I heard in response was an unsettling silence. I turned to check the storage room next. The door creaked as I entered. Shelves lined with supplies loomed over me, casting long shadows. I flicked the light switch, but nothing happened. My pulse quickened. Guys? I tried again, feeling the walls close in. Then, I spotted something out of the corner of my eye. There on the floor lay a laminated piece of paper. I picked it up. It was a map of Earth, but it was marked with strange notes, locations, words scribbled in a frenzy. Help, danger, find us. My breath caught that S when I saw it, a figure in the darkness, just beyond the doorway. A silhouette with no features. My instincts kicked in, I turned to run. My heart pounded in my chest as I dashed down the corridor. I had to reach the control room. I needed answers. As I ran, the lights flickered ominously, casting shadows that danced around me. I could hear whispers inside my head, echoes of the radio repeating the same desperate plea. Liam, help us. Then, everything went dark. The lights cut out completely, leaving me engulfed in pitch black. My heart raced as I stumbled through the corridor, trying to stay calm. But panic surged as I felt a cold breath against my neck. I turned around, but no one was there. I knew it wasn't over. Whatever was out there wanted me to follow. I could sense it was close. The urgency pressed against me, guiding me forward. I took a deep breath, ready to confront whatever lay in wait. One thought consumed me: I had to find Jackson and Sarah before it was too late. I stumbled ahead, navigating the darkness. My hands brushed against the cold metal walls, grounding me as my mind raced. I had to keep moving, but every tiny noise heightened my sense of dread. The air felt thick, as if the ship itself was holding its breath. When I reached the control room, I found it empty. The flickering lights had returned, but they felt more like warnings now. I took a moment to collect myself, breathing in deep, steadying the whirlwind inside me. I needed clarity. Then I noticed the radio. It was still active, its static just a background noise. I approached and switched the dial, my heart sinking with each scan of the frequencies. But suddenly, a burst of fragmented words broke through. Can't hold coming, help us, danger. Those words reverberated in my ears. Jackson. Sarah. I yelled into the radio, hoping for the faintest chance they could hear me. As I pushed down on the button, the static amplified, creating a dissonant choir that filled the air. Liam. Find us. We're in, the voice stuttered before a sudden silence fell over the connection. My breath quickened. The sense of urgency washed over me like ice water. I couldn't stay idle. I had to find them now. I rushed to a nearby console, pulling up the ship surveillance feeds. My eyes darted across various camera feeds, searching for any sign of them. The engine bay showed empty, the storage room too. But then one of the cameras flickered. I froze, watching the grainy image. It landed on the cargo hold. An object moved in the shadows, something large. I squinted, trying to identify what it could be. The dim light barely cut through the darkness, but I swore I saw a figure standing in the corner, a figure I had not recognized. My pulse quickened again. Jackson. Sarah. I shouted into the radio again, desperation spilling from my throat. The static crackled back in response, echoing my fear. I had to confront that figure or risk losing everything that I set out for the cargo hold, nerves on high alert. It felt like the walls closed in tighter as I moved through the narrow corridors. The closer I got, the more I could feel an inexplicable chill in the air. I dreaded what I might find, even as I moved forward. As I arrived at the cargo hold door, the handle felt cold beneath my grip. I paused, taking in the eerily quiet space. Shadows danced ominously in the slatted light. Finally, I pushed open the door. The sight took my breath away. Stacked crates surrounded an area where faded emergency equipment lay scattered about. But it was what lay at the center that horrified me: Jackson's racing helmet, still and abandoned. Jackson! I cried out, panic clawing at my throat. No response. That's when I heard it. A low, guttural sound from behind a nearby crate. A voice whispered my name, raspy and strained. "Liam, please, you have to." I squinted, feeling the cold grip of fear nearly paralyze me. "Sarah?" Then there was a crash from deeper inside the hold. My instincts screamed for me to turn and run. I hesitated, torn between risking it all to find Jackson and Sarah or fleeing before whatever was lurking could catch me. In that moment of indecision, the dim overhead light burst, plunging the hold into darkness once more. My heart raced. Whatever was out there had already found me. I stood frozen in the dark. The crash echoed like a gunshot, vibrating through my bones. My senses in overdrive, I strained to make out shapes against the blackness. There was no time to waste, I had to act. Taking a deep breath, I stepped further into the cargo hold. The icy air bit at my skin. I reached into my pocket for my flashlight, my fingers shaking as I fumbled. Finally, its weak beam pierced the dark. I swept it around, heart pounding as shadows shifted, but there was no one around. "Sarah? Jackson?" I called again. My voice sounded hollow, then I spotted something by the crates where I heard the whisper. It was a dull glint. I approached cautiously, light shaking in my hand. As I got closer, I realized it was a small metallic object, a shard from the ship's hull, jagged and fresh. Where did this come from? I muttered to myself. The ship wasn't supposed to be damaged. Not like this. A noise made me jerk back. The sound was like metal scraping against metal. I turned the flashlight toward it, but the beam trembled as my mind raced, searching for solutions and explanations. My gut told me I was not alone. "Liam." Another voice, clearer this time, but not one I recognized. I strained to pick it up again, but it was gone, a mere echo lost in the chaos of my thoughts. I needed to get out of this hold. I needed to find Sarah and Jackson. What if I was already too late? The idea caused a new wave of adrenaline to surge through me. I quickly made a mental note of the grounded shards, just in case I would revisit this area later. As I turned toward the exit, a shadow flickered at the edge of my vision. I whipped around, flashlight aimed at the movement, breathing shallow. My heart pounded in my chest. In the dim light, I saw a figure dart behind a stack of crates. I shouted again, "Who's there?" The response came as an unsettling silence. Too silent. I felt exposed, like a deer caught in headlights. It made every hair on my neck stand on end. I couldn't forget the whisper. I had to know if Sarah was near. Gathering every ounce of courage I had, I moved toward where I'd seen the figure. My thoughts raced ahead. Had they been trying to lead me somewhere? Or were they a threat? Then, unexpectedly, the lights flickered back on for a brief moment. What I saw next made my blood run cold. It wasn't just a shadow. It was a person, disheveled and wild-eyed, pointing toward another part of the hold. "Help please," they croaked, but the lights dimmed again, plunging me into semi-darkness. "Wait!" I shouted, rushing forward, but they disappeared as if swallowed by the shadows once more. I felt the flicker of hope teetering on the edge of despair. Had I lost them? Every instinct told me to turn back, but I couldn't. The only thing worse than confronting whatever was hiding in the dark was the thought of leaving my friends behind. I took a hesitant step forward into the dark where the figure had been, but just then, the cargo hold door slammed shut behind me. A loud clang reverberated through the air. Damn it! I cursed, trapped and alone. The panic surged again, much more threatening this time. A voice carried back through the gloom, chilling my every thought. You shouldn't have come here. I froze, my breath hitting in my throat, as the darkness pressed close. I strained to listen, my heart drumming in my ears. Who are you? I croaked into the darkness, forcing my voice to stay steady. The air grew colder around me, pricking at my skin as I waited for a response that never came. Then, without warning, the light flickered back on, brighter this time. I scanned the cargo hold, desperately searching for the source of the voice. There was no one here. Only shadows and the remnants of our cargo supply crates, battered and bruised by the crash. Feeling a rush of frustration, I turned back toward the crates. Sarah? Jackson? My voice echoed through the space, but only silence replied. I felt my chest tighten. They had to be nearby. I couldn't lose them too. I forced myself to move deeper into the hold, flashlight beam cutting through the gloom. Each step felt heavy, every sound seemed amplified. I noticed more fragments of metal scattered across the floor, some glinting in the light. This wasn't the natural wear of transport, something had truly gone wrong. Help! The voice drifted back to me again, faint and wavering. It was the same voice from before, and this time it sounded closer, almost desperate. Is that you, Sarah? I called out, my voice full of hope. But the only answer was the echo of my own words, fading into the shadows. Suddenly, another noise interrupted the stillness. A low hiss, much like air escaping. I turned quickly toward the sound, focusing my flashlight in its direction. I caught movement to my left. A shadow flitted between the crates. Stop! I yelled, reckless with fear. Show yourself. But it was gone before I could get close, a fleeting reminder of the unsettling presence I felt. Panic clawed at me again. Was it friend or foe? Either way, I knew I couldn't stay in this room much longer. I turned to make my way toward the exit, but with each step, the air thickened as if the darkness was alive, dragging me backward. I stumbled, my other foot catching on something sharp. I looked down to see a small piece of the ship's hull jutting out, slick with something dark. My stomach churned as I realized it was blood. What the hell? I whispered, the realization sinking in. I had to get out. Then I saw a flicker of movement among the crates. Someone or something was definitely here with me. I edged forward with caution, every nerve feeling raw and exposed. I needed answers, but getting them felt like chasing ghosts in a haunted place. The person I had seen earlier, I had to find them. They might know where Sarah and Jackson were, or at least, what was happening. I was about to move further when suddenly, the lights flared back on, even brighter than before. This time, I could see the hold clearly. What I noticed stopped me dead in my tracks. There, written in red across the bulkhead, jagged and erratic, was a message that sent chills down my spine: "They're coming for you." Before I could digest the warning, the light sputtered again, plunging me into shadow. I heard a voice, closer now, low and menacing. "You can't hide from them or from us." I turned, but the darkness swallowed me, the fear sinking in. I had to find Sarah and Jackson. I had to escape whatever was coming for me. I stood still, breath caught in my throat. The weight of the warning hung in the air, thick and suffocating. My flashlight flickered again, casting eerie shadows that twisted and danced across the walls. The voice lingered in my mind, a haunting reminder that I was not alone. "Sarah! Jackson!" I shouted again, my voice now strained with urgency. No response. Only silence. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were close, yet out of reach. The red message glared at me, almost alive. I took a deep breath and steeled myself. There was no point in lingering like prey. I needed to find a way out. As I carefully navigated through the maze of crates, I felt the hairs on my neck stand on end. The oppressive quiet was interrupted only by the soft scrapes of metal against metal, as if something was shifting within the darkness. I moved faster, trying to shake the unease creeping into my bones. Something crunched beneath my foot, and I looked down. A jagged piece of a control panel lay scattered in the debris. I picked it up. Despite the dim light, I noticed something etched into its surface coordinates. There were no clear markings to indicate where they led, but they felt significant. My fingers trembled as I clutched it, heart racing with possibilities. What did it mean? Were they ours or did they belong to something else, something threatening? Just then, I heard it again, the whisper, but this time accompanied by the shuffle of feet. It echoed around me, bouncing off the metal walls. You must leave. Now. The urgency in the voice sent shivers down my spine. Who's there? I called. There was no answer, just the eerie silence wrapping around me like a shroud. I pressed onward, every instinct telling me to flee, but curiosity pulling me toward the voice. Sarah? I tried again, desperation lacing my tone. I had to see who spoke. I pivoted around a stack of crates, heart hammering, and there, at the edge of my light, I saw a figure crouched low. Please, the person said, their voice barely a whisper. I rushed forward, desperate for clarity, but they melted into the darkness before I could reach them. Wait! I yelled, panic igniting within me. I pushed past crates, moving into the thick blackness, but only met with more shadows. A surge of frustration coursed through me. I was losing them, slipping further away from answers. Then the lights flickered once more, and I caught a glimpse of another message, hastily scrawled in what looked like blood. Run to the airlock. It said. My heart dropped. The airlock was where we had planned to transport cargo. If something was telling me to run there, I sprinted toward the exit, pushing everything aside. But just as I reached the threshold, I heard a loud crash behind me. I turned to see a shadow dart between the crates, its movements frantic. Someone was definitely in here with me. My instincts screamed for me to run, to escape whatever was lurking in the dark. Just as I started to bolt, I heard a familiar voice calling my name, a voice I thought I'd lost. Jake! Help! It was Sarah. But before I could react, the lights flickered out for good, plunging me into overwhelming darkness once again. I felt the world around me vanish into the blackness. I stood frozen, my breath quickening as I called out again, Sarah. Where are you? My voice bounced off the walls, swallowed by the shadows surrounding me. The wild pounding of my heart filled my ears as I blindly fumbled for anything solid to hold onto. Then, a sound broke through the silence, a soft whimper. It felt like it was coming from nearby, but I couldn't tell if it was real or just my imagination playing tricks. Sarah? I whispered, hoping for a response. Silence hung heavy in the air, and panic surged within me. I moved forward, stepping carefully to avoid tripping over hidden debris. I raised my flashlight again, its beam wavering in the oppressive dark. Just as I began to think that maybe I'd imagined her voice, a shadow flickered to my right. I turned, only to find nothing. My fingers tightened around the coordinates I had pocketed. They felt like my only connection to something solid, but they also reminded me of the danger that came with them. I had to keep going. I had to get to the airlock. Then, I heard it again. The whimper, this time closer, sounding more like a plea. Help, please. It was definitely Sarah. Hold on. I'm coming. I shouted, forcing myself to push forward. My mind raced. Was she trapped? Injured? As I stumbled ahead, the haunting voice of the figure from earlier echoed in my head, You must leave. Now. Then, like a spark igniting dry brush, fear exploded in my gut. I had to find her quickly. I surged forward blindly, my flashlight beam flickering across the walls, illuminating half-formed shapes and shadows. Each movement felt amplified in the thick silence, each sound louder than the last. "Sarah!" I called again, desperation edging into my voice. "Where are you?" There was a rustling sound ahead, and I followed it, hoping against hope. I rounded a corner and my flashlight flickered back to life, illuminating a small nook. There, collapsed against a crate, was Sarah. She looked disheveled but unharmed. Relief flooded through me. "Jake!" she gasped, shooting to her feet. Before I could reach her, I saw a movement at the far end of the room. A figure emerging from the dark, standing tall and still. My pulse quickened again. The silhouette was different from what I'd seen moments before. This was broader, more menacing. "Get back!" I shouted to Sarah, instinctively stepping in front of her. My flashlight revealed nothing but shadows, yet every fiber of my being screamed that we weren't alone. "Jake, we need to go," she urged, her voice trembling. Then the lights flickered back on, blinding me for a moment. Everything came into sharp focus. Sarah was beside me, wide-eyed and terrified. The figure abruptly stepped into the light, and I felt my breath hitch in my throat that it was not a person. It was something else, something synthetic and sharp. Its eyes glowed a menacing red. Just as realization dawned on me, the figure lunged forward, and all I could think was, we had to get out and fast. I barely had time to process what the creature was as it barreled toward us. My instincts kicked in. "Run!" I shouted, grabbing Sarah's hand and pulling her back. The metallic shriek of the thing echoed as it advanced. We dashed into the shadows, the flickering lights casting erratic patterns around us. My heart raced, each beat ringing in my ears. I had no idea where to go, but there was no time to think. The air felt charged, heavy with tension as we zigzagged through the maze of crates and debris. Suddenly, the lights went out again. Darkness cloaked us entirely. I could hear Sarah's panicked breaths beside me, and my own pulse reverberated in my throat. I squeezed her hand tighter. "Stay close," I whispered. We stumbled forward, guided only by the faint glimmer of light filtering through the cracks. I prayed it wouldn't be long before we found an exit. Then I heard it again, an unsettling mechanical sound, like grinding metal coming from behind us. It was following us. "Left!" I yelled, dragging her away from the noise. I could feel dread coiling tighter around my chest. I just needed to find a way out, a way to escape whatever that thing was. We burst through another doorway, emerging into a narrow corridor filled with faint emergency lights. The corridor stretched ahead, but just a few feet away, another figure blocked our path. I skidded to a halt, pulling Sarah back. This one looked human, but the eerie glow behind its eyes had the same red hue as the creature. My gut twisted in fear. I could only assume it was some kind of sentinel or security system gone rogue. "Who are you?" I demanded, trying to project bravado. "Access to restricted areas is forbidden," it intoned in a dispassionate voice. "You must return to your designated zone." It took a step forward. "We're not going back," Sarah cried, her voice cutting through the tension. "Unauthorized personnel will be neutralized," the figure warned, raising its hand as something glinted in the low light. I backed away instinctively, but before I could act, I heard a loud clang behind us. The creature was barreling into the corridor, and I didn't hesitate. "This way!" I shouted and turned. We ran like the wind, crashing through another door, praying it would lead to safety. Then everything went dark again, this time darker than I thought possible. The emergency lights flickered once more and then vanished entirely. I felt disoriented as we stumbled forward. But as I reached for Sarah, something cold brushed against my arm. "Jake?" she whispered, panic creeping into her voice. I could tell she felt it too. Whatever we encountered was close, and it was getting worse. Keep moving, I urged. In the void, a minor sound broke the silence. A low, grinding noise that made my skin crawl. That was when I saw it, the faint outline of the creature at the far end of the hallway. It stood there, waiting, watching. I could feel the dread swirl in my chest. In this darkness, I knew we had to make a choice: fight or flee. But the weight of that decision hung heavily in the air, and I could sense that time was running out. I felt my throat dry up as the creature's eyes gleamed from the darkness, a pair of hungry red orbs fixated on us. I turned to Sarah, but her face was pale with fear. The sound of its grinding metal seemed to drown out my thoughts. We couldn't keep running forever. The maintenance room, I remembered suddenly, a plan sparking hope. It was just down the corridor. If we could make it there, maybe we could find something to defend ourselves. I forced my feet to move, pulling Sarah along. Focus, we'll get to the maintenance room, I said, trying to sound confident. I could feel the wave of fear wash over her, but I pushed forward, intent on reaching that door. As we stumbled through the inky corridor, I heard the commotion grow louder, the creature's movements fast and erratic. It had to be right behind us. My instinct screamed at me to run faster. Then, out of nowhere, a loud crash echoed from the direction we needed to go. A metal bar fell from the ceiling, blocking our path. The way was completely blocked. We'd have to turn back. Jake, it's coming, Sarah screamed. I turned to see the red glow of the creature growing brighter, its form looming closer. Panic seized me. Without thinking, I yanked Sarah down a side passage, desperation guiding us. The space felt smaller, and the air thickened. Every time we heard the creature shuffle behind us, adrenaline surged through my veins. The side passage led us to a small room littered with broken equipment. I spotted a pair of old tools, an axe and a wrench. They felt weighty in my hands, comforting. I handed the wrench to Sarah, forcing a quick smile. This won't hold it back for long, but it's better than nothing. A loud crash shook the entryway. The creature had entered the room, its red eyes penetrating the dimness. I could barely make out its shapes, the long, sinewy limbs and the protruding metal parts gleaming in the light. We need to get out of here, I hissed. Now. We darted to another door at the far end, praying it would open. Metal scraped against metal as the beast closed the distance between us. The door creaked open just enough for us to slip through. On the other side, we stumbled into a larger chamber seemingly empty but dimly lit. My heart sank when I caught sight of broken monitors and scattered debris. In the corner, something flashed. I turned towards the flicker as Sarah caught up beside me. It looks like I trailed off, moving closer. It was a terminal, displaying a holographic interface with strange symbols and graphs. What do you see? Sarah asked, breathing heavily. I don't know. But this could tell us what is happening, I replied, pondering how I could make sense of it all while keeping my focus on the impending threat. That's when I felt it. A chill ran through the room, and the monitors buzzed ominously. I saw movement behind us. The creature was here. Quick! I shouted, I need to find out what this means but before I could finish, a loud crash resonated from the entryway. The creature had found us again. I squeezed the wrench, my heartbeat echoing louder than the noise outside. We stood frozen, waiting for a sign of help, of escape, or even understanding of what was happening. The creature lingered just beyond the threshold, and a new wave of uncertainty gripped me tight. This wasn't just about survival anymore. The room held its breath, the air thick with tension as we faced the door where the creature lurked. Behind us, the holographic terminal pulsed with data and silhouettes of the Last Ark, flittering shadows of our lives before everything unraveled. My heart raced, every instinct clamoring for action as we waited for the inevitable breach. Then, without warning, the door exploded with a crash. The creature burst through, eyes glowing a fierce red that seemed to suck the light from the room. It moved with a jolting speed, all sharp angles and metallic limbs. I gripped the axe tightly. Any chance I had to protect Sarah now felt like a fragile flicker in the storm of chaos. There was no time to think, only fight or flight remained. "Sarah, behind me!" I shouted, positioning myself as a shield. As the creature lunged, I swung the axe, but it whiffed through the air, meeting only darkness. The beast dodged, its movements unnatural, almost knowing, as if it thrived on our fear, our despair. It slashed out, narrowly missing my shoulder. "We need to back away," I yelled again, sensing the walls closing in. "Over there." Sarah pointed to a door at the far end of the chamber. I nodded in agreement. We had to move, and fast. Without hesitation, we darted down the length of the room. The creature followed, its guttural snarls echoing behind us, chilling my bones. Bursting through the door, we tumbled into a narrow hallway lined with flickering lights and eerily quiet compartments. Despite the clamor in my chest, there was an unsettling stillness as we navigated the space. "Where do we go?" Sarah gasped, glancing back as we sprinted. I could see the shadow of the creature flickering in the distance, its form distorted by the dim lights. A sudden impulse seized me. "The airlock," I panted. "If we can reach there, we can seal it." Just as I turned to lead the way, a shattering noise echoed behind us. We raced forward, breathless, nearly colliding with another door that slid open with a mechanical whir. I dashed inside, tugging Sarah through before slamming it shut. My instincts flared to life as I threw a nearby piece of debris against the door to reinforce our barricade. "Jake, what now?" she hurriedly whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "Stay quiet," I replied, my heart still hammering against my ribs. We paused, listening, every second stretching out as the sounds of pursuit faded momentarily. I stole a glance at the terminal again, flickering like a baleful eye in the room's gloom. The information scrawled across the holographic interface snapped at my attention, revealing coordinates anew. "These might be important," I murmured, desperate for a clue, something to provide direction in the chaos. Then I heard it again, a voice, low and insistent. "Liam, help us!" It coursed through my mind, echoing in haunting waves. "Do you hear that?" I asked Sarah, panic threading through my voice. Yes," she breathed, the reality of the situation tightening around us like a noose. Before we could ponder further, the snarling returned, louder this time, scraping against the door with a menacing determination. I knew we couldn't last long. "We have to get to that airlock," I repeated, steeling myself for another escape attempt. "Right. Let us go." She agreed, determination setting her features. We moved again, jockeying past the remnants of our shattered lives in this once secure vessel. The reality hung over us. We were being hunted, trapped in a metal coffin suspended in the abyss of space. Each heartbeat echoed a reminder of the lives still trapped below, of Jackson, of those haunting voices that seemingly called for help. Our latest sprint led us down a series of turns, my mind a haze of urgency and dread. Then, just as the airlock came into view, I stopped short. A barricade of twisted metal blocked our path, remnants of some tragic accident. "The coordinates!" I shouted in a surge of hope. "They're leading us to the airlock. If we can just shift this." With adrenaline flooding my veins, we pushed against the debris, straining under its unforgiving weight. We needed space, needed a chance to escape. Just then, the creature's snarl pierced the air, echoing behind us again. Its red eyes burned into me as it drew nearer, the sound of its steps a harbinger of doom. "Now! Push!" I yelled, summoning every ounce of strength. With a final heave, the debris shifted enough for us to squeeze through. We burst into the airlock, gasping, and I slammed the door behind us. My hands fumbling over the controls, I activated the locking sequence. "Come on. Work. Jake, it's right there!" Sarah screamed, pointing. The creature had shifted into the airlock corridor, its outstretched limbs reaching for us with unsettling speed. With a final gasp of desperation, I activated the airlock's emergency purge. The doors slid shut, and the noise became deafening. For a heartbeat, I felt the pressure shift. A moment's darkness gripped me. Then, with a final exhalation, the blinding light of space erupted before us, and the creature was flung out into the void. We both stumbled back, bracing ourselves against the control panel, disbelief washing over us. It's gone. Sarah breathed, staring at the open darkness where the creature had been. I didn't respond, lost in the thought of all that had happened. The voices, the creatures, Jackson and the others still somewhere down below. A sudden stillness hung in the air. I locked eyes with Sarah, the shared understanding weighing heavy between us. We have to find out what really happened here, I said quietly, the ache of uncertainty creeping back in. The coordinates on the terminal flashed again, beckoning us back to the heart of the chaos, reminding us that there were still unanswered questions. The battle wasn't over, and the unseen specters of the Last Ark lingered just beyond reach. I stepped away from the airlock controls, a new resolve forming. "Let us finish this," I said. With a reluctant, shared nod, we stepped back into the darkness, knowing the journey forward would unearth answers, but at what cost?